Fasten your seatbelt. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Welcome to the Happy Hour Garage, featuring a duo of racing gals who live for the thunder of horsepower, the smell of high-octane fuel, and burning rubber at 200 miles an hour. They believe a day at the Speedway is like a day at the spa. Together, they bring you NASCAR news and interviews and get you ready for the races each week. And now, here's your hosts, Shannon Yoakum and Maureen Kelly from the Happy Hour Garage.
Gentlemen, start your engine.
Hey, welcome to the Saturday edition of the Happy Hour Garage. The sun is shining. I'm getting packed for Daytona, baby. Oh my God, what a busy day! Trying to convert Canadian technology into American. Having a portable studio on the road is just mind-boggling. My brain is fried, and I'm ready to sit back, have a beer, chill out with you two and our special guest tonight. Can hardly wait. How you doing, Maureen? Let me bring you on. I'm, by the way, Shannon from Vernon, BC.
She'll be from Daytona for the next 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
No, I had a great day here. We were able to lose our snow. Fortunately, it was over 50, so it was nice and quiet. I like those days.
I saw a picture of Philadelphia, I think it was, and it was snowing at Dover. That's what it was. It was snowing at Dover.
Yeah, it was. We have more snow coming. I think we have 3 storms that we're facing. But we did lose what we had gotten yesterday, the 4 inches. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah, in time so we can all get to our parties tomorrow.
Oh, right. Yeah, Super Bowl. Right. How could I forget that? Buddy is also joining us tonight from Johnson City, Tennessee. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good.
Good.
We got some on the way.
Oh, really?
We got some on the way Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. They're calling for snow up here. I'm not looking forward to it.
Sucks to be you guys.
It could suck to be you if you're waiting in these airports.
Nope. My flights all the way across are all good weather, so I'm good. I only got a transfer once at Toronto, and which is fine. Their weather's going to be good, and then Orlando, I'm not expecting any snow. Hey, I want to bring on our special guest tonight. He began his racing career at 17 years old, and in driving for a family-owned team in the Busch North Series. Throughout the years, he's raced trucks, he's raced Xfinity, he's been in Winston Cup, Nextel Cup, Winston Cup, Nextel Cup, and back and forth. His first victory in the Busch Series was at Homestead, driving for David Ridling, and the second one at Bristol. Let me welcome on Kevin LePage. Welcome to the show, and welcome to the Happy Hour Garage.
Hey guys, how's everybody doing tonight?
Hey, we're doing fine. We're looking forward to interviewing you. You have had quite an interesting career.
To say the least, especially being from Vermont. There's not too many NASCAR drivers that came out of the state, so to be the first to win a race down here in the South, as well as first one in the Daytona 500. It's just been a lot of firsts for me, and over the last 21 years, and just can't say how happy I am to represent the state the way we did over the years.
Now, being from Vermont, everybody probably asked you about maple syrup. I know I get that when I was in Ontario, where I was born, so you're not too far from me. I've been to your state. It's quite beautiful there. But you now live in Mooresville, North Carolina, correct?
That's correct. Came down in January of 1994 and bought a race team back then with sponsorship from the Vermont Teddy Bear Company, and ran the first couple of years. Had some decent runs, and then the third year down here, Vermont Teddy Bear pulled out, and I vowed to the race team that we'd run the first 7 races of the year, and if we didn't get sponsorship, then we'd have to shut down. And fortunate enough for me, the 6th race, a car owner came over, and David Ridling, matter of fact, was the car owner, and asked me to if I'd be interested in talking to him about driving his car. And from that point on, basically my career took off by driving for different car owners. David was the first, and went to the Cup Series in 98, excuse me, with Jack Roush and Larry McClure from Morgan McClure Motorsports. And it's just there's a big list of owners, both in the Sprint Cup and Xfinity Nationwide Busch Series that I drove for, and dabbled in the Truck Series. So I've had a great ride. Still hoping I can still do some more, but right at this point in time, I really don't have anything going.
You've driven for a couple of the Happy Hour Garage alumni, Mike Harmon, Derek Cope, Johnny Davis, among others, and the race day sponsor Tim Vaines was on the show also lately. So you're like part of the family here.
Yeah, I've actually been associated with all of them in one form or fashion, and we've got the opportunity right now in front of us. We have a truck owner and an Xfinity owner that has shown interest in having me drive their equipment. The only thing that they are asking, it's just like everybody today in the sport, is there any sponsorship, that you can bring? And we're talking to people. We have a conference call on Wednesday with a major company, and it's just so hard to go to a company and say, hey, I need X amount of dollars, and they say, oh, what's the name of your team? Well, I don't have a team because I got to bring money in order to get this team, and so they're kind of hesitant of saying yes, we'll sponsor you when they don't have a commitment from a car owner or a truck owner. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, but we're out there beating the doors down, and if something happens, then I'll be driving after Daytona. If not, we'll just keep doing what I do on a day-to-day basis, which I own a landscape company that I bought 11 years ago because I knew that racing wasn't a lifetime sport. It was a great time when I was in it, and hopefully I can run a few more years in the business is what my plans are. But if it doesn't happen, then the business was something that I started to make sure I have my feet grounded in something once racing's over with.
Kevin, this is Maureen. I was going to just ask you about that. That was my first question. It seems that it's so frustrating today to come up with either A, the cash for your own car, or B, a sponsor for all these rides. And it seems like you have been able to put together these things by pasting them over, say, the last 10 years or so. It has to be terribly frustrating. How much money do these people want from you to ride?
Well, it depends on what you're looking for. I mean, for me to go in the Sprint Cup Series, I mean, the numbers are, in the tens of 10 millions and up. And, to be honest with you, I mean, I've had a great ride there. I really enjoyed it when I was there. Had a lot of success driving for Jack and Larry McClure and some of the even smaller teams like Bob Jenkins over at Front Row. And that part of me is I really don't have the interest of going back to the Cup Series. I really would love to finish my career either in the Xfinity or truck program. And, the car owners that I'm talking to, the truck owner and the car owner I'm talking to, they're in the neighborhood, say, look, if you can bring me anywhere, say $500,000 to $1 million, each one of them would put me in their vehicle, tomorrow. And so, we're out there, beating the doors down. And both of these vehicles, these teams, are capable of putting a product out there, that I can run anywhere from 5th to 20th every week. And so, they called me up. Both of them called me within the last week. And I had been working on some stuff through some, mutual friends who were trying to find money for me. And now that this popped up, it's like, okay, let's try to hammer on some of these companies that we're after. But it's hard. I mean, it is very difficult. And, the teams I've drove for in the last half a dozen years, the Mike Harmons and stuff, these are teams that were struggling to make races by themselves. So they hired me to come in there and get them in the show and to make a paycheck. And I enjoyed driving for them, but, when it got to the point where it was starting parks and stuff, and then I had to chase money, from the owners, I just got tired of it. And that's why last year I didn't do anything. And I, my wife and I made a commitment to each other that, if I can't find a ride that, I can be competitive out there, I'm not going to go out there and do a starting park and chase money, from these car owners that, hey, they get paid every week, but, they say, oh, I can't pay you this week. Can I pay you next week? Well, then next week comes and they can't pay it because something else happens. And, it just got to the point where I needed a year off, and I took it off. I'm rejuvenated. And if I can find a little bit of money, I can, be back behind the wheel and go out and be very competitive.
Well, I hope so, because I'm looking over your record, and you take a car that maybe, I don't know, could finish 20th, and you can bring it up towards the top 10. It seems to me that, I was just looking at your record, the past hour. It seems to me that, sponsors would certainly look at that and be interested in, somebody that could take a Mike Carmen car and throw it up there.
Well, I mean, that's what you hope for, and then the unfortunate thing is over the years, we've had some meetings with some major companies, and some of the small teams that I have been involved in were in these meetings, and they were going up against some of the big teams. And, unfortunately, the big teams go in there with 8 or 9 or 10, executives, and all of them speak out and talk about what they can give a company and convince them to jump on board for, half a dozen races for what we would do for a whole year, because, a small team has 10 to 20 employees, where, a big team has 200 to 300 employees, so they need more money. And, so they jump on board. Well, then all of a sudden, they don't get what they're promised. And so it's just a hard business to sell to new companies, to say, look, a small team will do just as much, if not more, for you than a major team. But you just have to understand that we are not going to be at the limelight every week, but we will give you more off racetrack than some of the larger teams.
Derek Cope talked about that yesterday when we interviewed him. He said that exactly that very thing, that off track fan experience and a lot more interaction with the sponsors and etc. That these days you have to be a lot more creative about how you sell not only yourself, but sell that guy that you're asking $500,000 for, and what you have to really be creative, because you're all out there looking for money, every single one of you.
Well, and it's not just racing. I mean, it's football, it's baseball, it's basketball, it's golf. I mean, there's Saturday night races. I mean, everybody's knocking on these companies' doors, and like Derek said, I mean, Derek and I have got a great relationship, and I'm very happy that he's got some of these sponsors that he's announced over the last few weeks, and that he'll be able to continue racing this year. But it is very hard, to convince a company, that's willing to spend, $500 or $1 million. But what they don't understand is, they say, well, I just got a proposal from, one of the big teams in say Xfinity Series, and they're wanting $10 million. How can you be competitive for $1 million? And here's the question. We can't win races on $1 million. But what we can do is we can give you all the marketing opportunities. We can give you everything that the big teams can give you at the racetrack, by garage passes, by tours, by in-the-hauler experience, by meeting the driver, and we can do appearances, we can do show car stuff. I mean, we can do all that other stuff except guarantee wins. And even some of the big teams, who gets, $7 to $10 million, they can't win races. They can run up front. They run in the top 5 every week, but they're not winning races. And so, it's a hard sell, if a company wants to win races. But it's also, most of it is the fan experience, the employee experience, where, I've been around for 20 years down here, and to bring in somebody for the first time into the garage area and see, the race car and listen to the engine and smell the fumes, and, it's a totally different experience and then to see, the Dale Earnhardt Juniors and the Jeff Gordons and, the Kyle Bushes and Kirk Busch and Tony Stewart. I mean, the list goes on, and it's like, wow, they feel like they're walking a red carpet, so to speak. So we can do the same thing, it's just we do it on a much smaller scale.
Exactly, and I can vouch for that once you're down there and as a fan seeing all that stuff, it puts a whole different light on things, and you feel very privileged and excited, and it's quite a different world. And like you say, you walk along pit road and you bump into whoever, Jeff Gordon or whatever, and the fans just love that. In the past, that's been very inaccessible to them. So I hope that is a sell for you, because it is truly. I mean, I'm seeing even the Denny Hamlins of the world putting out things on Facebook and Twitter saying, "Oh, it's fan car." I think NASCAR has probably said, engage the fans more. The fans need to be engaged in order to feel passionate, in order to pay the ticket prices and the hotel prices and come to the race.
Right. It's true. I mean, the fan base has definitely changed over the last 10 years, and today I believe fans have multiple choices of what to do with their time. Where 20 years ago, 30 years ago, they only had a handful of things to choose from. And so it's a very tough sell right now. But at the end of the day, is once you get a sponsor or a potential sponsor into the garage area and you give them the experience, 9 times out of 10 that sponsor jumps on board. Because it's totally different experience. It's a totally different sell from a boardroom where you walk in and you talk about all these proposals until you get behind the racetrack, inside the pit area, up on the top of the toolbox, up on top of the hauler. It's just a totally different experience.
Kevin, can I take you back to when you decided to start your own team? That was Matrix, right? Back when you made a decision to begin your own company, you called that was Matrix, right? That was your race team then. I noticed that your landscaping company is the same. It's Matrix also, isn't it?
Yeah, what I did is when I first came down in 1994, it was LePage Motorsports. And then when we was hired to drive for David Ridling, we shut down LePage Motorsports. And then, for a period, I don't remember how many years exactly that I drove for different teams. And then I was offered sponsorship from Redman Tobacco to run a limited schedule in the Busch Series. So we formed Matrix Motorsports at that time. And when Matrix Motorsports shut down, I think 8 years ago, we carried Matrix Landscaping, to continue it, because it was just a big part of me, when I did it. And my business has done very well with it. And would I do ownership today? It would take a special deal to do it. I would have to be involved with some investors because the business is so tough. I mean, I can tell you how many sponsors that I brought into the sport for the first time, heartening for me, because, we did very, very well. We did a lot of appearances. And then to have somebody come in and snooze them and, sell them the world.
Right.
And then to lose them, it was very, very, very disheartening for us. But, it's the nature of the business. I mean, it's the same thing in my landscape business. I go out and do a tremendous job taking care of people's property, and some guy drives by with a pickup truck and trailer and puts a flyer out and says they can cut their grass for half what I charge them.
It's not the same.
But they don't have the insurance. They don't take care of the deal. And,
Right.
Then all of a sudden these customers call me back 2-3 years later and say, hey, we're sorry we left you. We thought we were doing something better, saving ourselves a buck, but it ended up costing us more money. Will you come back? And we usually take them back. But in racing, it's the same way. So in life in general, I mean, business, you got to do as much as you can. But, I was just, got a little sour taste in the ownership business when, we ended up working so hard to take care of and find sponsors and then have them go away.
Well, the landscaping business can be very lucrative. My former husband, and we're still good friends, his family, that's his family's business. And I was involved I just did the bookkeeping for them as a side job. But I know they were doing work like you are, insured work, and, ensuring that the trees that they were putting in were going to be there next year. That costs a lot extra to do that.
Yeah.
So it's a landscaping business is different from I'm going to cut your lawn.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh,
Yeah.
Absolutely. When I was going to university, I have a degree in horticulture. I worked for many landscaping companies in summers and different times on estates and what have you. And I know how hard a work it is, and it's very competitive. But if you're good at it, and I take it you're still doing a bit of that, are you?
Oh yeah. I mean, we're very strong and we're a small company. I mean, I grew the company several years ago to almost 200 customers, and from 20 when I started it. And it was a big challenge back then. So we've dropped it down to we're about 100 customers right now, and these 100 customers have been with us for 5 years or longer. And it's just a great steady income. I've got some great employees, and I actively work at least 1 day to 2 days a week with my guys. I mainly do all the paperwork and the mechanic part of it. But when we do big projects, big upfits or installs, I go with the guys and basically like a lead foreman on the deal. But my passion is still in racing. I still would love to do it for a few more years, but it's getting more difficult to find money. It's just because when you go to a sponsor and you say, hey, look, I only need $500,000, I only need $1 million, and it's like, well, I got 10 proposals on my desk and everybody needs 7 to 10 million. How can that work? And it's a hard sell at that point to sit there and tell them what we can and cannot do. But the thing is you look at the Derek Copes out there and the Jeremy Clements and Johnny Davis. These guys are not racing for anywhere near the amount of money that the Jack Roush and the Joe Gibbs are demanding, and yet these guys are going out there week in and week out and are very competitive. And that's where I think I can be if I can just find that one or two companies that are willing to jump on board.
Kevin, could you tell us a little bit about the years you were with Jack Roush? How I've heard that it's a very demanding company to work for.
You know what? The one thing I learned from Jack, and we have remained very good friends since I was there in '98. The thing is with Jack is if he has an issue with you, he brings you up in front of him in closed doors, discusses it, either yells at you, compliments you, tries to fix it, whatever the case may be. When you open the door, it's all done. It's over with, water over the dam, and we move forward. A lot of car owners that I have dealt with over the past, since him, and you go out and you do a good job, and you're winning races, and you're running competitively, and all of a sudden you get a phone call, and you're like, "Oh, we don't need you anymore." And I'm like, "Why?" "Well, you scuffed up the car too many times, or you." Said this on the radio that may have upset one of the pit crew guys, or you did this and you did that. We don't need no more. Well, we are as individuals. We work, at 100 miles an hour, 200 miles an hour, 150 miles an hour. Our adrenaline's flying. We're spurred a moment when the get down out of a wreck or after the race. The media's there with TV and microphones and everything, and sometimes you say things that you wish you didn't have to say, but I mean it's just instant, but with Jack and his people when we were there, I mean there was times that I had my butt chewed, but he made me a better person both on and off the racetrack because of the way we had our meetings. Dale Earnhardt Sr. Was a very good friend of mine, and when we used to get together, talking, it was all about something else. It was nothing about racing. It was always about, hunting in Vermont or maple syrup in Vermont or Lake Champlain in Vermont or, my dog and, just it was everything else. And so, through the years, I've learned a lot about, different things and how to act and how to treat people and how to treat sponsors, by some of these great people in the business that I've been able to work for.
Speaking of that, I hate to bring this up, but I don't think we could avoid it, is the 2008 Dega race. You talk about how sometimes, when that adrenaline is pumping and things are, we've seen it with every driver, some reporter comes along and sticks a mic in your face and you're cranked up and powered up. I mean, can you walk us through that whole incident?
Which race was this?
The April Dega race for the Busch guys, or Nationwide. Sorry.
Oh, Talladega. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, honestly, I mean, there's two sides of the story. If I had to do it over again, I would have waited till the pack go by. But, for the 8 years or 10 years I had been down here, the rule was, and even they went back and reviewed the drivers' meeting that was said that day, is when you leave pit road, you keep two tires on the yellow line and then blend up into the racetrack, which was something that we've done for years since I first came down to Talladega. So when I pulled up, I mean, obviously I did what I was doing. I was trying to blend in the pack. Well, the first half a dozen cars go by me, and then next thing you know, Carl Edwards, saw that the bottom opened up and he turned down. Well, I was there and caused a big wreck, which, a lot of guys were, get damaged and ruined a lot of races for a lot of drivers. And, I got on the radio and on TV and I was pretty upset about, Carl running over me and all the stuff. But, hindsight, I mean, I was the one driving the race car. I should have waited for the pack to go by me and then blend up. But, we had a really good race car and we had to come in and pit for, I forget whatever reason it was. And it was just get up on the racetrack and let's try not to lose the draft, because it's very easy to lose a draft there. And, I made a mistake. I mean, it was a driver mistake, but, it's just, I mean, there's not a driver out in the business today that has not made a mistake in one form or fashion.
Oh, God.
Unfortunately, that day, it took out, I don't know, 5 or 6, 8, 10 cars, whatever the number was. But, if I had to take it over again, I mean, I should have just went in the trailer like a lot of the drivers do today. And that's the thing, we didn't have PR. We didn't have somebody in there to take me, calm me down, get me in a trailer, give me a glass of water, change and do all this stuff. Back then, I was my PR person, especially because I was with a small team. And, I didn't have that guidance to just breathe and maybe look at the interview or the replay and just think about the whole thing. I just microphone, Kevin opened his mouth, took full blame for it, and now I take full blame for it. I did after, but it was just a bad situation for a lot of people. But you know what? A lot of people learned from it. NASCAR changed the rules, and in the Cup race, I think 14 guys were black flagged for doing exactly the same thing I did that day, and it's because that's what we used to do. I mean, and then all of a sudden they're trying to change the rule. Because of what happened, but I mean, we were so used to doing it, and after you do it for so many years, it's just repetition, and it was just a bad situation. But you know what? Poop happens, and it happened that day, and we all learn from it and move forward.
Yes, sir. It certainly does. It's the nature of our sport. Now you weren't hurt in that accident, Kevin? Have you been seriously injured?
Knock on wood, no. I got knocked out in 1994 at Charlotte, but that was about the most extensive damage that ever happened to me. And NASCAR has done a really good job with all their safety features over the years. The soft wall, the Hans device, and the seats, all these things have really, kept drivers safe. Before a lot of that stuff, I mean, there's some, bumps and bruises here and there, hard to get out of bed the next day. But, as the sport progressed, and lessons were learned for losses and stuff. We were able to keep drivers, safe in these violent wrecks that we have out there. But, it's part of the business. I mean, when you get in that race car, there's a chance that you could get in an accident that day, and or you can have a good day and win the race. So it's just part of the business.
And your wife is Donna. She's been with you for a long time. I'm guessing. Well, I know she has been. I'm guessing she probably feels the same way. I guess when you've been around the business that long.
Well, I mean, she used to spot for me. The only year she never really spotted was when I was at Roush. And she always told people that she felt more comfortable being a spotter because she could tell, how bad the wreck was, if I was going to be okay or not, and then listen to me, on the radio. Even though she would be sitting, on the pit box with radio on, and still she could not see. I mean, I got a very bad wreck at Daytona July 4th weekend, and both the front and the back of the car was on fire, and I was sitting still, and I got hit by one of the last cars on the racetrack and get spun around again, and basically, I mean, it was a pretty big hit, and all she could hear is the spotter say, "Get out of the car, get out of the car, you're on fire both front and back," and she didn't know what was going on, how bad the fire was, and because she couldn't see from the front straightaway to the back stretch, how, and they didn't have big TVs like they do back then. And so, I mean, she was very worried that she would have been up on the spotter stand. She would have said, "Oh, okay, it's not a big deal. It's just a little fire, but, yeah.
I don't think so.
She's been a good supporter of me through the good times and the bad times.
Yeah, well, you're a couple, and that's what that's NASCAR is about, those kinds of marriages. I mean, you sort of marry the guy and the business as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Kevin, you mentioned earlier that you and Dale Earnhardt Sr. were really close friends, and we're coming up on that tragic anniversary, 15 years of 2001. Can you tell us how hard that was to go through?
Oh, it was actually very difficult. I was down there for the race. I didn't have a ride that year, but I went down there. I was talking to some car owners, and I actually left after the 125s or 150s or whatever it was. On Thursday, I left to come home, and an interesting story was a friend of mine was having his liver, liver problems, and he was needing a liver transplant, but he was a big Earnhardt fan. So I went to Dale's coach driver, and I said, "Hey, Jimbo," I said, "can you get Dale to give me a card to Ray, get well soon?" And he says, "No, Dale he'll sign it." I said, "You tell him it's for me." So after the 150s, I walked over to Motorhome, and Jimbo had a card, and it was signed to Ray, get well soon, from Dale. And so I got home Friday or Thursday night. Friday morning, I put it in the mail, and I sent it to Vermont to my friend. Oh, well, you know what happened that weekend. Well, Ray got it on Monday morning, Monday during the day when the mail came. And, I mean, he opened it up, and there's a card, signed to him. And he started crying because he thought it was a big joke that somebody, signed Dale's name and put Ray on it and all this kind of stuff. And, well, his son knew that I was down there, so he called me up and said, "Hey, did you get this for Dad?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." And so it was just, Dale would do things like that, for us, behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know Dale Earnhardt Sr. and what he would do. And it just made Ray a very, very happy. He got a liver transplant that fall, I guess it was. And unfortunately, he just passed away last summer. And but throughout his whole life, Ray was, he was sad that he had a chance to live, by somebody donating a liver, and unfortunately Dale died. But for every great loss is a great lesson learned. And we came up with the soft walls, and we came up with the Hans device, and we came up with better seat belts and better mounting and better seats, and just so many things. And if you go through life and anything, I mean, for every major loss, if it's car accident or house burns down or airplane crash or whatever the case may be. There's always a lesson to be learned. And if you can improve the safety aspects for anything, unfortunately it was a tragedy, but it saved many lives down the road and years to come. And unfortunately that's what happened.
As a race car driver, do you fear death? Like, are you, when you go out there and you're going 200 miles an hour, there's that chance. Like, how does a race car driver's brain deal with that?
For me, I tell people it's my office or my coffin. There's not too many people who can make a choice on how you're going to go. So if I were to die in a race car, I'd like, hey, perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to do, And, so it's just, I don't even worry about it. I mean, it never crossed my mind that I was going to get hurt in the race car. And when and if that ever happens, that would be my last time in a race car because, if you get out there and I've seen drivers come in the sport that, are very nervous in the car, afraid, whatever the case may be. And you watch them and they're very erratic on the racetrack. So I made a promise to myself that, when I ever got to that point, I wouldn't be doing a racing anymore.
Yeah, that's probably good because I know exactly what you're talking about, and I could give some examples of those very drivers. I mean, a lot of them say that they hate Dega and Daytona because of the high speeds and the chess match and the inches apart and all that sort of thing. And darn well that they're scared witless. And that's got to be a little nerve-wracking, right?
I actually love those two racetracks because it is a chess match. I mean, we had multiple races at between Daytona and Talladega that we could have won. Had multiple good finishes, top 10 finishes. And, I always loved those racetracks. And then, when they repaved Daytona, they took a lot of the good racing out of it because, when it was on the old surface, cars would slip and slide after a few laps. And, the best handling car and the best driver would, go to the front. And, we took a car, in one of the 500s that we bought from Ganassi, and the car never made a race on time. And we didn't make the race on time. We had to take a provisional, but we didn't qualify on time, so we had to race our way in. And that was the year where they first started, where they had two cars would transfer into the 500. Well, we ended up finishing third after starting like 20-something in our race, and we ran behind Stewart and Burton and run third. Got us in the show, and then we ended up finishing ninth with a car that wouldn't make it on time. So, it was always fun to race those races, and I miss them. They, like you say, it's a chess match, and we had some really good races in both Daytona and the Talladega.
Yeah, the new format in Xfinity racing now is actually going to benefit guys who like racing. Especially at Dega and Daytona. You just need to get in, right, to the new chase format for Xfinity. What do you think about the format?
I've never been really crazy about the chase format in the Cup Series. I've always been one to through my whole career where when you go to every race, you put your best car forward and try to get as many points as you can. And at the end of the year, you add up all the points, and the guy who gets the most points wins the championship. There's too many variables in our business, I believe, where these chase formats. Like Kevin Harvick. He had a flat tire over at Kansas, I guess, and you had to win the next race in order to get in, and there's too many variables that are out of your control, but it's made it exciting. The year Tony and Carl Edwards tied at the end, and Tony won because of second place finishes or whatever the case may be, so we've had some very good, exciting chase formats, and we've had some disappointing ones, so I don't know how it's going to be in the Xfinity series. Just because we have such a diverse group of drivers. You got a handful of guys, a handful of teams that are, just multiple.
Well-funded.
And then you got a big group of guys that are fairly funded. and then you got some that are not funded. And so I just don't know how it's going to work out. But it's like anything else. I mean, we have to go through a year or two and see if it works. And if it does work, and then hey, I'm going to applaud NASCAR for making a change. But if it doesn't work, I hope we don't stay with it for long term, because it's just it's a different format, and it's just a totally different mindset on how to race.
I agree with you. I mean, I do agree. If it doesn't work and it can't be tweaked in 1 or 2 years, then they need to toss it. But it might give a shot to some of the. I mean, there's some really good drivers in Xfinity who aren't driving the 18, and they're not driving the 7 car. I mean, it gives them, to me, at least a chance to get into that group of 16, or I guess it's not 16, it's 12, I think, in Xfinity.
It is.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it's broke down, but you're right. I mean, like a Jeremy Clements or Ryan Sieg, I mean, those guys, both of them have run very well over the last few years. I mean, they very easily could come in and as a small team and have a shot at winning the championship. So, it's just gonna see how it works out. I'm always looking forward to change. Sometimes it's not good, sometimes it is good. So we just have to wait and see how it goes. And NASCAR's done a good job over the years with the Cup side to keep changing it to make it more exciting. And who's to say that in the Xfinity and the Truck Series they're going to have to tweak it once or twice and go from there.
Right.
Kevin, I got a question from one of our fans. With all the young talent, who do you think is going to be the next superstar coming out of the Xfinity Series, or Ryan or Chase or some of the young guys going to Cup this year? Who do you think is going to be the best long term?
I think Chase is obviously going to be somebody that's going to be around for a lot of years, and he's just on the Cups of being he's just starting to be a Cup driver. Ryan Blaney, got a great, both of them got great family values, with Bill and Dale, Dave Blaney. I mean, they both are racers. They both understand the sport. There's just the biggest thing that I can say or should say to these young drivers is when you move up through the ranks, just remember where you came from, because I've seen it where guys come in and they develop these big attitudes, and I mean the fans know it. I mean the fans can break you or make you, and you just got to stay grounded. You look at Jeff Gordon. I mean, I've watched him come up and raced against him, and the guy never changed. I mean, he got a little grayer in his years, like we all have, but he's never changed. I mean, he's still Jeff Gordon, and these young guys just need to understand that this is a pleasure to be a racer, and but we've got some really good young talent. Unfortunately, there's some guys, in the Xfinity Series or the Truck Series that may never ever get a chance in the Cup Series just because they don't have funding. And that's sad, because, if I were to turn back the clock or turn the clock ahead 20 years, and today were to come down from Vermont with the sponsorship that I had from Vermont Teddy Bear, I wouldn't even be able to afford a truck deal. And, I probably wouldn't have the career that I had. So that's the sad part about it is, the sport has gotten so expensive, where, some of these young talented guys, may never ever have a chance to make it in the Cup Series. But fortunate for me, I mean, I got over 500 races between both the Cup and the Xfinity Series, and, that's a lot to be thankful for. And, but it wasn't just handed to me. I mean, there was a lot of hard work on my side, both on and off the racetrack, to have been able to stay in the sport for 20 years.
And have you sort of come to terms with yourself? You kind of touched on this at the beginning of the interview, that you were given, you took a year off away from it and talked to your wife, and you guys decided you'd give it one more whack at cat. So if nothing materializes this year, or is that your time frame to kind of go forward, or?
If I don't, I've got a plan in my mind, what I want to do over the next 2 to 3 years. And if I can do it here, in the business still, either in Xfinity Series or in the Truck Series, that's going to be great. If not, I have a place where my last race will be, and that will be Thunder Road in Vermont. That will be my last race when I decide when and if it happens. And, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to have a week worth of celebration with, people in Vermont that supported me over the years, and, go to Thunder Road, have a good race, and, when that night's over with, then that'll be the night that I say I'm done,
Yep.
We've had a great ride. I can't, there's not many guys that can say they've been in the business 20 years. I've been in it 20 solid years? No, but, still to be having people call you to come in and drive their race cars and stuff, it's made me feel very gratified, that people know what I can do in a race car and what I've been able to do and stuff. But, if it wasn't for the fans, they have been a big part of it. Still to the day, people walk up to me and call me Teddy Bear Man, and hey, Kevin LePage, can I have your autograph? I've been able to really just, when I get done this whole deal and I write a book about it, there's going to be a lot of neat stories in the book about my experience in the time in NASCAR. It's been a great ride, and I'm not ready to ride in the sunset yet. I'm hoping somebody listening tonight will decide they want to sponsor a Truck Series or an Xfinity program, and we can finish this thing out. But it's been a lot of fun. It's just been great.
Well, you've been able to do what a lot of people would envy, even though I know it's a tough go. It's still a dream job where you get to drive in a race car, right?
I wouldn't say it's a dream job, but it definitely has been, I go back home quite a bit, and several years ago when I went home, some of my classmates said, congratulations. You said when you were in high school or in grade school that you were going to be a NASCAR driver, and a lot of hard work, a lot of hours, a lot of miles on behind the steering wheel, but it wasn't handed to me, and I think that's probably why I'm more gratified now, is because I worked for it. And, it's just been a great experience. I got trophies, for winning at Homestead and winning at Bristol that, they're not going to take away from me. My names are going to be in these record books until ever, And if you go back and look at how many NASCAR drivers have ever won a Busch race or an Xfinity race or a nationwide race, it's less than 150. It's one race or more. And then when you start winning more races, it's even smaller, So for me to be a kid out of Vermont, in 1994, load up my cat and dog and my wife in the U-Haul truck to drive down to North Carolina, and 21 years later, I'm still doing TV, radio, and talking to sponsors about doing this. You couldn't ask for a better job.
Let's see. This is a question then based on that. Who's the most famous person that's not a driver and not in the business that you've ever met as a result of your racing career? Who's that one person that the kid from Vermont says, wow, man, I got to meet, da-da?
President George Bush. We were in Daytona when he was president, and then he was down to races, and I was the last driver in line that shook his hand, and we actually had a little conversation. And I complimented him on doing such a great job running our country, and he said, "Well, thank you, young fella. Good luck in today's race." Oh. And not too many people get a chance to shake the president of the United States' hand.
No.
And that was one. Vanna White, get to meet her. Wayne Newton. The list just goes on of the amount of people that NASCAR brings in, and how many people really celebrities that really look forward to going to a NASCAR race, and then
they are.
To get a chance to see them and introduce yourselves, during driver introductions, and it's just been cool. It's been a lot, but probably President Bush would probably be the most influential guy that I was able to meet. And,
that is so
and
cool.
and by the way, he is pretty tall too. I'm not that tall. I'm 5'9.5", and he's I think he's right at 6 foot or a little bit 6'2". So he was tall, but I mean it was just not too many people can shake the president of the United States' hand.
Not at all.
And
cool. He's a huge sports fan. I mean, he is a he owns a team too, but he is a big sports fan. Now, Billy Ray Cyrus sponsored your car one race, didn't he?
Achy breaky.
Remember that?
Yeah, that was at Dover. Got a chance to meet Billy, and had some good conversations with him and stuff. And he was on our car at Dover. I was driving the band number 49 car that day. So that was fun talking to him.
Did you ever?
Yeah, he's a cool guy, and he's a big race fan too.
Yeah. Did you ever see him on Dancing with the Stars?
No, I didn't.
Oh, that's good. you would have to scrub your eyeballs with bleach, I'm sure. Yeah, I could just imagine what that was like. Yeah, that's funny. Do you think I'm sorry, buddy, I'm jumping over you here, but I wanted to ask you a question about, because you just kind of alluded to it about remembering your roots, and you just said, the day comes when you're going to retire. Where are you going back to your roots, to where it all began? And so many drivers these days don't really have racing roots per se. They've bought their way in and have not really earned the respect of the fellow drivers. Now, I know that this is this driver code business. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, because it became very clear when Kenseth took out Logano about the driver code, and lots of people were talking about that. Can you address that a little bit without cracking up?
I think every driver handles their way in the sport, to each their own. The one thing that I was told when I came down here in 1994 by Ken Squire, who also is a very good friend of mine from Vermont, he said, just never forget that you're where you came from. You're always going to be from Shelburne, Vermont. And I held true to that. Even though I live in Mooresville, my hometown is Shelburne, Vermont. That's where I was born and brought up. And so when people go out and do things on the racetrack, I mean, everybody as a driver, remembers things that happened in the past. May have been last week, may have been 10 years ago. And they all handle it in a different situation. I just think whatever happened at Martinsville was a bad deal for everybody involved, from the drivers, from the crew chiefs, from the guys back at the shop working on the cars, from the sponsors, from NASCAR. And it was a difficult decision. I mean, I don't think anybody won in this whole situation. And it was just a bad day for a lot of people. And I think there was a great lesson learned from it. So it'll be anxious to see how 2016 in all three divisions, move forward on this, what happened last year. And hopefully we just go out there and just race races and stuff. But, when we get in that car and we're, our blood pressure's high and, our adrenaline's flying and, when things happen, I mean, sometimes there's a little switch back there that changes and, you go from Mr. Goody to Mr. Ugly but, the unfortunate thing is nobody won in that whole situation. And but there was a lot to be learned from it. And, we'll move on in 2016.
Kevin, I have another fan question. They want to know if you worked on your cars when you ran your own teams.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I was, over my career, in some of the positions that some of the teams I went to, it was more of a hindrance, because from when I started racing back in 1980, to all the way up till even when I was racing with Mike Harmon a few years ago, I would literally go work on the car, to make sure I had the best prepared car, the safest car, that I could possibly, or the team could possibly involve. and bring to the racetrack. And some of my crew chiefs, in some of the situations I was in, they felt threatened, because, I knew a lot about the race car, but, I always would speak over the radio to the crew chief or the owner or the car chief or the mechanic or whatever, to make the situation better, not to throw anybody underneath the bus, but just to make it better, make the car faster. And I always thought that two heads were better than one. And in most cases, there was a lot of crew chiefs that I had a lot of success with. And because we both were on the same page, and then there were some crew chiefs that didn't want you to say anything because you're supposed to only be a driver, and I'm the crew chief and I'm supposed to make the car better. So I think the days where the teams that the crew chief and I ran, worked well together, we ran well together. And there was a stretch at Darlington when I was at Roush with Pat Tryson that we were the only driver and the only team that ran 4 races in a row that finished in the top 10, all 4 races that completed every lap. And that's a lot to say for Darlington. For 2 years, 4 races, we accomplished that. And but we had a very good working relationship. So, I enjoyed working on the cars. Obviously, when I went to Cup, I didn't work on them as much, but I worked on them mentally with the crew chief to make the car better.
Well, that's interesting. So you do, so you could describe for your crew chief or even the car engineer what adjustments you'd want to make and all, because I noticed that now. I hate to compare drivers. I'm in the same age bracket as you are. Drivers that are older with some of the new drivers today who absolutely seem like they have no clue what's under the hood. Even some of the ARCA drivers, it does worry me when I start to listen to them, and I'm thinking to myself, why can't he or she describe, where they want to change?
A lot of it has to do with their upbringing, in what they raced in. I started racing in 1980,
right.
on basically a NASCAR car, which we bought from down south and then brought it to Vermont and raced up home on half-mile, third-mile, 5/8 mile racetracks, asphalt. So basically, when I came down here, I already had a knowledge of what an A-frame was, what a shock was, what a camber and caster and all that kind of stuff, because I race in that car. Where some of these guys, they race on dirt, they race Indy cars, they race go-karts,
right.
Sprint cars, and they had similar parts, but they didn't have as much as what we have, what I grew up on. And so their knowledge, was very difficult for them to feel or explain to the crew chief what the car is doing because they don't have that experience. I raced up home from 1980 all the way to 94. So that's 14 years of racing, 30 to 40 races every year, on all kinds of variable racetracks, high banks, flat racetrack, road courses, but there always was asphalt, and they're always a NASCAR type car. So when I came here, it was very easy for me to keep acclimated because I basically knew it. Where I struggled the first few years was the aerodynamics. And then when I got the aerodynamics figured out, then we started winning races and running it.
Okay, yeah, well, you had that figured out pretty well.
Yeah.
I just have one other question that I keep forgetting, and I do want to ask this one. You've talked about a couple of the racetracks that you really seem to like, and that would be, Dega or some of the super speedways, and I'm guessing Michigan and a couple other of the larger tracks, Pocono. What are the tracks you don't want to drive in? What's your least favorite track?
Honestly, there's not one. The way I look at it, I enjoy going to every racetrack to have grandstands when there's fans in it, because we're there to put a show on, and we're there for the fans. And, that's one thing that I think has made me, who I am, is that I always gave back to the fans. And, there's not a racetrack out there that I don't mind going to. Now, there's some racetracks I haven't had good finishes at, but they're far and few between.
Right.
But the basically, if there's a grandstand there, I'll go race because it's the fans. It's all about the fans.
Kevin, I got one last fan question for you. They want to know how it came about that you drove for BAM Motorsports, Beth Ann Morgenthal's race team at Talladega in 02.
I was not racing for anybody, and they were going through a couple of different driver changes, and so they called me up and wanted to know if I would drive for them, and I actually drove for them. I think on 2 different occasions. 2 different years, and we had some really good success with them at times, and then we had not so much success at times. The last time I was there, the crew chief and I. He basically had it his way, and we went to Dover, and we were fast right off the truck. I think we went right to the top of the board, and but the car was a little bit too free, and we kept working on the car, and and then we ended up dropping down to like 30th or something. And he goes, "Where do you think you're going to be? What's wrong?" I said, "If you can tighten this thing up, I can be in the top 10 in qualifying." He goes, "You sure?" I said, "Just tighten it up." So sure enough, we tightened it up, and we went right to I think we qualified top 10, somewhere in there. And I said, "If you can leave this like that, I can race this thing all day long." Well, the next day, we went out and in the race, and the car was so loose. I kept complaining on it, and we ended up crashing the car during the race. It just got away from me. And I don't usually crash cars, but it was so loose I crashed it. So following week, I think it was Chicago or Kansas, one of the 2 racetracks, and we went there, and that thing wouldn't turn in a 40-acre field. And I ended up missing the race. I got fired on Monday, and it was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. One of the tire guys for the team, come up. I ran into him someplace, and he goes, "I need to tell you something, Kevin." I said, "What?" He said, "The crew chief got you fired." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." He says, "Every time you went out, we just kept putting more air to the right front tire, more air for the right front tire. And when you went out and qualified, just use numbers, you're only supposed to have maybe 5 pounds, 10 pounds more air in the right front than in the right rear. We had 50 pounds in the right front compared to the rear." And he said, I wanted to say something to you, but I knew I would get fired. And I said, "Well, it's no big deal. I just, if they didn't want me there, they didn't want me there." And so that was probably the worst situation I was in with any place where a crew chief deliberately made the car bad to get a driver fired. But you know what? It's water over the dam. If the crew chief walked up to my house and he needed a glass of water, I'd give him one. So, I learned that you can't hold grudges in life, and if you do, you're going to be a miserable person. So I just water over the dam. We move on. We just keep doing our business, and if I can get behind the wheel of a car this year, I'm going to be excited. If not, you know what? We've had a good conversation over the phone tonight, and we'll just move forward.
Kevin, I'm sorry, I told a little story. I do have one more fan question. It's they want to know, what was your funniest, wackiest, craziest moment at a racetrack or NASCAR related?
Jesus, that's a good question. I'd have to really think about that. I would say probably the happiest, funniest part was winning at Homestead, my first race. Ken Squire and Ned Jarrett were calling the race, and I actually got the live feed from CBS. Ken got me a copy of it, and so I was replaying it, and then when I was passing Bobby Labonte for the lead towards the end of the race, we ran within 0.2 of what the pole speed was, and this was like 50 laps into a run. And 2 laps later, I got by Bobby and was leading the race, pulling away, and I ran 0.3 faster than the pole speed that day. And it was just a very special day that David Ridlin and the team put a very fast car underneath me. And, we came in leading and had a bad pit stop, went out 8th or 10th, and worked our way back up to the lead. And it went back and forth. And then to pass Mark Martin and Bobby Labonte in front of Ken Squire, who's, a mentor of mine from Vermont, and to do the things we did that day, that was probably one of the funniest and happiest days of my career.
Not a surprise that your first win would be. I would not have expected you to answer that any differently. Let me wind this up, because I have a real good question for you. I think is, did you phone Tony Stewart and ask him to drive that car after he was injured?
I actually, we've been talking for the last few days since his injury, and I just they were looking for somebody that was a little bit smaller than me, maybe somebody around 5'4", and I just don't fit that mold, But no, seriously, it's just a bad situation for Tony.
It really is, yeah.
I feel real bad for him. It's his farewell tour, and to get hurt, just having fun, and it's just a bad situation for him, and I hope he gets back in the car soon. I know backs are nothing to mess around with, because it's not just what you do this year in racing, it's what you do the next 30, 40, 50 years of your life. So he needs to really get healthy and have good quality of life down the road, not just, what's going on in his racing this year. And he's been a very good friend of mine. I've watched him come into sport, race against him in the Busch Series and the Nationwide Series, and race war against him in the Cup Series, and just a really good friend, and it was devastating news the other day when I heard it, and I just wish him a speedy recovery and get well soon.
Yeah, we all do, and yeah, I imagine his phone is burning up.
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be more, the Gene Haas and management is going to make the decision on what's going to happen. But it's just, over the last 3 years, Tony's had a lot on his plate, and the team has had a lot on his plate, and whoever they get in there will do a good job. It's a great organization, and as soon as Tony gets back, he'll be right back up to speed, and the biggest thing is he's got to get healthy, and the sport will be there when he gets back.
Yeah, it takes a little longer when you're a little bit older, and I think the May 21st date that was put out there is a little presumptuous, but we'll see, I guess. Who knows? But, I want to thank you for coming on, and I want to really hope that you can get some sponsorship put together, and perhaps not for Daytona, but maybe for Atlanta and beyond. And we'd like to ask you if you wouldn't mind just hanging around after we end the show, and we'd talk to you for a second, and good luck in all your endeavors.
All right. Thank you very much, guys.
We hope you've enjoyed hanging out in the Happy Hour Garage. Thanks for tuning in. Please join Shannon and Maureen next week for another episode of NASCAR news, interviews, and stories. Check out our website at www.happyhourgarage.com for our previous shows and see what's coming up next.